Do you find that your go-to-market strategy is challenging because if somebody's discovering the product, they can figure out for themselves whether it makes sense for them or not. But when you're having to go out and think about positioning and messaging and all of these things, and you're speaking to two very different types of potential customers with two pretty different use cases, does that create more complexity than you feel you should have to deal with?
It does, without question. I don't think of it as so much being challenging from a go-to-market perspective. It certainly is. Like, there's communities of no-code, founders and communities of technical founders, and there's very little overlap there. But I tend to think more and more people are looking at Outseta and seeing it as sort of a low-code solution for whatever that's worth, and realizing there's some middle ground. The more advanced technically no coders tend to be the more successful ones, and we're seeing developers more and more care about speed to market and use no code tools more broadly. So it hasn't actually been too challenging in that regard. I think where it's really challenging is when it comes to customer support. So we will have incoming questions from onboarding customers, some of which are completely non-technical people who in some cases are like, what is a URL? Literally. And on the other side, we've got software engineers that have been building software for 20 years asking technical questions that are way over my head. And we need to very quickly sort of suss out, who are we talking to? How technical are they? Do they need like code snippets in the response, or do they need us to explain like very fundamental concepts with regards to building software to them? And that's always challenging and very much a work in progress.
It reminds me of a hosting company I used to use many years ago. I think it was called DreamHost. And when you created a support ticket, they used to have this drop down, which used to say something like, what's your level of knowledge about this? And I think the simplest option was something like, look, I'm a newbie, I don't know anything. And then number 4 or 5 on the scale was, no offense, I probably know more than you. And so that was kind of like very useful because when you then, it's really frustrating when you're kind of more of a technical user and you're contacting support and they're taking you through all the basic stuff, right? So that was a good way, I guess, that they were filtering people out.
We haven't done anything like that, although we've talked about it, and I think something like that could be certainly in our future. But it's actually interesting, just like my own skill set. I am fairly non-technical, and I think one of the benefits of that is when it comes to no code implementations of Outseta, I'm like the perfect test dummy. It's like, what can Jeff build as a non-technical person? And I think a lot of our no code customers sort of gravitate towards working with me because I'm the same level of technical idiot that they are. And they recognize that. But the flip side of that is then I'll be talking to, a super experienced developer, and they're asking really technical questions that I'm not prepared to answer. And they're like, aren't you the co-founder of this company and you don't know how to answer my question? And I'm like, oh yeah, we've got another co-founder who is an engineer who can help you with that. So it is an interesting challenge for sure.